Still on.
All right, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this evening the council met in closed session to discuss two items. The first item was a appointment related to the assistant city administrator, as well as, appointment of the assistant city administrator.
Mr. Cole, if I can help you, there's an
Yeah.
assistant city administrator, this Department, developmental services, and there's also an assistant city administrator for public safety, so there were two.
Okay, excuse me, I apologize. So as to the Assistant City Administrator appointment related to administrative services, the council gave direction to staff, no reportable action was taken. As to the Assistant City Administrator for Police Services, the council voted to declare that position to be vacant on motion of the mayor, second by vice mayor. Ayes were the mayor, vice mayor, Councilmember Pittman, Councilmember Smith. Noes were Councilmember Draper, Councilmember Goodson, and Councilmember Hatley. On the second item, the council member met to discuss with legal counsel anticipated litigation. One particular case was anticipated. The council received an update from the city attorney. The council gave direction to the city attorney. No reportable action was taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. You stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute. Pledge.
For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
I'll second that.
Flip a coin.
You can go ahead.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We are moving on to presentations and proclamations. We have one proclamation this evening, or two proclamations, recognizing November 8th as Campfire Remembrance and Observation Day, and a proclamation recognizing November 2019 as Homeless and Runaway Youth Month. Is there anyone here to accept these proclamations? Let's see, Campfire Remembrance. Councilmember Pittman, would you like to accept this? Sure. A proclamation recognizing November 8th, 2019 as Campfire Remembrance and Observation Day. Whereas on November 8th, 2018, the campfire sparked in Butte County with a loss of over 300,000 acres and approximately 18,800 structures. Whereas the campfire changed Butte County forever because 86 lives were lost, 86 souls who were neighbors, friends, and family. Whereas the citizens of Butte County rose to care for those who were displaced by showing love, understanding, and compassion to those in need. The citizens of Butte County united together to feed and clothe those affected. And whereas on November 8th, 2018, Butte County realized the strength and integrity of our first responders, emergency response teams, health human service organizations, news outlets, and animal rescue teams. And whereas the leadership by name and the leaders by virtue rose to care for its citizens. and our North State will be forever changed. Together we are Butte Strong. Now therefore, I, Chuck Reynolds, Mayor of the City of Oroville, on behalf of the Oroville City Council, do hereby proclaim that on November 8th, 2019 at 11:08 a.m., for 86 seconds, all citizens in Oroville should unify in silence to observe the anniversary of the campfire, therefore showing respect to those lost and the community who tried their best to care for their citizens.
With your permission, Mayor, I will have this properly sealed up and presented to the County Board of Supervisors and the Town of Paradise.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I need that one. I'm not done.
Oh, you're not done. All right.
Is there anyone here to accept the proclamation for recognizing November 2019 as Homeless and Runaway Youth Month? Mr. Jones, you can come up too. Okay. All right. What's your name? My name is Mallory. Thank you. A proclamation recognizing November 2019 as Homeless and Runaway Youth Month. Whereas California has an estimated 200,000 children who are homeless, including approximately 2,000 from Butte County. And whereas approximately 25% of youth exiting foster care will experience homelessness, and whereas natural disasters and a lack of affordable housing have exacerbated youth homeless across rural California, and whereas due to the lack of stable housing, homeless youth face great difficulty in accessing food, clothing, adequate and appropriate medical care, and school, reducing the likelihood of successful graduation and adulthood. And whereas unaccompanied with youth experiencing homelessness confront these and other challenges associated with homelessness without the support and guidance of a caring adult, and whereas awareness of youth homelessness and its causes must be heightened to ensure greater support for effective programs aimed at preventing youth homelessness. And whereas the citizens of the City of Oroville, California, are the key to preventing youth homelessness by being mentors, role models, guiding youth toward available resources and productive choices, creating opportunities for youth to successfully transition to adulthood. Now, therefore, the City of Oroville hereby recognizes November 2019 as Homeless Runaway Youth Month.
Thank you very much for having me this evening. My name is Mallory, and I'm the Program Coordinator and Youth Employment Specialist at the 6th Street Drop-In Center for Homeless Youth in Chico. On behalf of all of the staff at the 6th Street Drop-In Center and all of the youth that we serve, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude for your observance and recognition of National Homeless and Runaway Youth Awareness and Prevention Month. Thank you.
I just want to comment and say, Mallory and I work together as co-workers at the Youth for Change. I just want to thank you for your service. It's priceless what you do with our homeless. Thank you so very much.
Okay, Rainforest Art Project.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to introduce Mr. Dan Evers. He is here to discuss this project with us. Fortunately, we've been able to combine a couple different things that we're doing in the city. We've came up with an idea. It's a concept. We hope you like it. Dan can explain the Rainforest project for you. I've taken the liberty, Dan, of making a PowerPoint. If you want to go through it, I have some pictures to show you as well that are a little bit better than this. How this all started out was early this year. The city released a NOFA from the Arts Committee to do different various projects throughout the city. So we released a NOFA. We had approximately $30,000 for these things. One of the projects were submitted came from the Rainforest Project. Unfortunately, that one was a little bit more complex and complicated than what we could currently handle at the time. And, you know, so we felt it was a good project as staff, but we really recommended that we look at it in a different direction. Well, the Rainforest Project has been very persistent and has wanted to do a project here. The art is, when you see it displayed in person, it's an amazing thing to see. But the best part of all is all of this art is made by our children. Not just mine, not just yours, but everybody in this community. It's made by school-age children. The Rainforest group works with them in the schools. So it may be an appropriate use of the Arts Committee money that we fund them later. As we were talking with Dan, one of the things that came up that we have been struggling with is this Table Mountain walkway. What are we going to do with it? Right now there's a couple slides up here. This is what the Table Mountain walkway currently looks like. Dan, if you push the button, please. This is the concept of what we're talking about potentially doing in concert with the Rainforest Project. Now, don't get too hung up on the salmon that are on there. It doesn't have to be all salmon. It was just an idea and a concept. We like more the idea of a salmon, maybe incorporating the emblems that are on the current roundabout by the Bossburger. There's a gold miner, there's a pick and an axe. I believe there's a dragonfly. There's different things there, but also incorporating those in there, but also include the salmon, but not just salmon. We don't want a we're not going to try to trademark the city as salmon only. We just need to, but we need to include that in there. Could you push it one more time, Dan? This would be a kind of a concept of what it would look like coming around there if we replace that railing. Each one of the salmon that you see in there that are represented is a mosaic that was made by local school children, our children. So with that, I've kind of set the groundwork for what we're doing. I'm going to get up here in a moment and give you the pictures so you can see them a little bit better. They're a little bit better. This is a cut and paste job of the pictures that were there, and they, the pixels and everything kind of changed a little bit. And Dan will explain kind of the project to you, how all this fits together.
We are a group of professional artists in our work. My brothers and I, our work goes all over the world. We've recently completed a large job in Africa, and we've worked in Europe a lot. At any rate, at one point in all of our lives, we've had somebody come along and mentor us or say, hey, that's wonderful, and touch your shoulder while you're working on a piece of art. And it's life-changing, and especially validating when you see your work in public. So what we have become advocates for is to give the kids an opportunity to have their art seen and accepted in public and go through this life-altering experience. When we talk about homelessness and things like this is all part of the same issue. And one of the first things that Bill and everybody brings up is what about vandalism? We have problems with some of these issues. And I said, that's all we work in is lower income areas and Central Valley in California and Imperial Valley in towns like Brawley, El Centro, Calexico, and things like that. So we have a lot of problems in these towns, and we've mobilized literally thousands of kids to create their own works of art. So when we come here to advocate, we're not necessarily advocating a design, we're advocating these kids' rights and their ability to experience a life-changing moment through having their art seen in public. Want to show another one?
The only other ones left is a mosaic of a salmon.
Oh, okay.
You can show it if you like.
All right. Is there any further questions? Or?
No, I think what we're looking for from the council tonight is, this is a concept that we put together. One of the things that we've been lacking on this project is what does it look like? The Rainforest Project folks, they came through, they delivered some conceptual images so that we can get kind of an idea of what we want to do up there. A couple of the things that would change from the concept to the actual completed project is along the top. You can see the pillars come up. There would be a bar that would be in there just to prevent people from sitting and stacking stuff on top of it. And then probably about every third pillar, we'd like to put a standardized light standard that is a solar run light to provide area to the walkway overnight. Once that's done, going up Table Mountain, a couple other things that we'd like to do to improve the area would also be to plant vines on the, I believe that would be the south side of the roadway where it's all dead and overgrown now, just to bring that back with some sort of irrigation system in the middle of the hill so that it couldn't be damaged too much. And then an entryway sign to our downtown core. Something to the effect that says, welcome to beautiful downtown Oroville. Because this is going to present an entrance to your downtown if all of these steps were taken. Now, we're not going to look at this from the perspective of an engineer perspective as a vehicular pedestrian barrier. We're going to look at it as a walkway feature. The difference is that you get into different engineering standards when you do that. Right now, people are protected by a piece of chain link fence. I think if we put up some sort of whether it's a precast that's made somewhere else and bolted there, or we put in some sort of a cinder block stucco covered wall, it's going to be a safer area for people to walk. So we will look at that and bring those prices back if you like this concept. We want to make sure this is something that you like before we go out and we spend any more time or effort on this. I think it's really important that we note that through Dan's work and everywhere he's been, they haven't had any of these vandalized. And if they are vandalized, each one of the salmon that you see in there, the mosaic, can be removed. It can be taken, it can be cleaned. The pieces of glass that make these up can be replaced. So it can be fixed. And if a car were to hit it and smash it, the whole thing, what we can do in there is, if it's precast, is it can be unbolted, the centerpiece, and a new one put in there, so it can be quickly replaced. It'll be expensive to do that, but it won't be as expensive, honestly, as the railing we have down there now. So this is a very ambitious project. I think it's something good that we can do with our children. I mean, I know that, if my kids had put one up there, I'd still go look at it. I mean, just because, hey, they were little kids and they made that, or my grandkids. I think that everybody's children gets to do this. So I think through our arts committee and our NOFAs that we have through that, we have a way to participate with our children. We need to find a way as a city, I believe, to put arts and music back into our schools, because that seems to be always cut from the curriculum, because we have to get to the 3 R's and the other things that are competing for those same dollars. And this is a way the city, as a city council, can put arts dollars back into the schools by doing this. So I think it's a good project. I personally like the way that it looks, but this is a policy decision of this council if you'd like us to proceed with this and get more pricing on this.
The other thing, the element of ownership, I can't tell you how much, it's shocking to me, even over the years, what a powerful tool that is in changing these lives, giving these kids the opportunity to have a piece, be stakeholders in the city and their future home.
Thank you. We have some council members that would like to comment. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I think ownership is just wonderful, just to dovetail on that. And I think two of you have already stated basically some of my comments. I know some months ago I was talking to ORAC, to state parks and Fish and Wildlife, and because they were kind of droning on about dumping going on in the wildlife area. This is going someplace. So we have a beautiful wildlife area and there's illegal dumping and it's just terrible. And I said, what you guys can do is you can start engaging the kids and developing ownership in our community, because this is a community asset. And so that being said, I think, again, the city collaborating with the schools, and it's just, this is A+ all the way across the board, to borrow from, that idea of schools and getting A's. And so I think it's brilliant. Bill, kudos to you. I think it's a brilliant collaborative work and effort to getting this wall done. And Scott, of course, this is a big piece of what he's been pushing for. But no, I love it. I could talk about it all night. A good job. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about how we're going to get it done and pay for it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, I'm total support. I don't need to repeat what Eric just said, but I would add a couple things. And not to say that fish are a problem, because I think fish are great and the salmon is a great recognition, but the Swimboat Trail, which is nearby, has a number of features, and they're artworks of the bear, the swans, the geese, and other animals that we might consider adding to this, not to make fish the whole thing, whereas we have so many animal life along the river. It might be nice and give the kids an opportunity to draw something different.
Sure.
And add that to the flavor, so that, and I have no problem with the fish, it's just when the Swim Boat Trail, which is nearby, has a variety of animal sculptures already there, and along the trail, it might be nice to tie that in with that too.
I will hike that trail on Saturday.
Okay, well, there's a whole bunch of steel metal sculptures that are depictions of animals there, and there's a bear with a fish in it.
Oh, wonderful.
I think that's probably one of the best ones. If it could be recreated, it would be
I
wonderful.
think keeping just the river theme, and I love it, and we love doing things like dragonflies and, other.
And I can report that I have actually been on the job when I was back working for the department. 3 times I ran across bear late at night, jumping on the salmon in
Really?
downtown. In fact, one night with our engine, we actually chased a brown bear up Montgomery Street.
No kidding.
Yeah, so.
I've never heard.
Yeah,
I never would have thunk it.
Yeah. So I would add that, and congratulations, I think it's a great idea.
Wonderful.
Thank you. I remember the bear running up Montgomery Street. We also had a bear in our backyard in Thermalito.
No
so,
kidding. Oh,
yes.
in where?
Mountain lions, bears.
Oh, my goodness.
Vice Mayor Thompson would like to comment.
Thank you for bringing this, absolutely in support of it. I would, as far as the different renditions, it'd be good to have maybe some graphics to choose. I like just salmon, but I'm not opposed to dragonflies and bears. I'd prefer just not be messy.
So we can be clear on this, when this wall is completed, it's not going to be covered with mosaics. There's going to be vacant spots for different images that can be put in there. So, so don't, I want to be really clear with everybody. So don't expect to see a wall with all of these mosaics completed, because this is going to take years to complete for our children as they come through the school system to complete.
One important technical issue is that we'll have to buy molds for this, and we'll be laser cutting the backing material, the substrate that goes in there, because they need to be recessed so there's no exposed edge on them. So we need to keep it to a limited, a repetition, because the more we do, the more expensive it gets, the more different animals.
Right.
I can investigate that further, but they make these rubber molds, and they're pretty expensive. So I was thinking every third. Now, on the variation of the salmon, and I'm all for it. We've thought through it a little bit. We have them all kind of being a little bit the same color and everything, but our whole thing was part of the Native American thing with salmon is we used to look at a lot of the art, mostly in the Pacific Northwest, and they do all kinds of renditions of it so that the kids would have a very well-defined space, and we would actually water jet cut the substrate so it would be precision within a few thousandths of an inch. And then the kids would be working on that, the older kids. The younger kids, we'd have to transfer it on it. They could do the designs, and then we could transfer it. But having that space that it sets into is pretty important to have them similar. So I would say we could, realistically maybe do 8 or so and then repeat. But then they would have the total liberty to use whatever colors and features within that space, just for technical reasons.
I would like to jump in on that. You said something about the rubber molds being very expensive. I have the technology and ability to make the rubber molds, so you wouldn't have to worry about them being
Yeah, I forgot who I
expensive.
was talking to, forgive me.
Councilmember
Wait,
Draper.
I'm almost done.
Yes.
And as far as, I might have been pushing it, the wall, but this is, used to be Chiefs, but Lagrone's, he was the, what do you call it, the beginning, there's a special word for the impetus.
my
Isn't
fault.
that the right word? Impetus?
It's my fault.
Yeah, he was the one that first brought up the wall being changed up the Table Mountain, so I think it's a very important project for our city and worthwhile to
It's
invest.
the low-hanging fruit, it looks like. I mean, it's pretty much a nice one.
Not to grab anybody's thunder, but I've been hearing about it from my wife for 20 years.
Hey, no.
Okay, now we got force behind change. Okay.
Councilmember Draper, please.
Well, I just wanted to add that Table Mountain is the destination for thousands of people every year, and they come here to see the wildflowers. And it might lend itself to, if you can work it out size-wise, to putting poppies or lupine or some of the wildflowers that are native to here. and they would be really colorful. And the other thing is, you know, as you go up Montgomery Street and take the roundabout, that's the way to Table Mountain if you're going up the hill. And so that might be kind of nice too.
I love the idea. You don't have quite the flexibility within those, you know, to change colors and things like that where, you know,
Yeah, that's true.
and still identify it. But those are small issues. And really what we do, we're a segue. This is an interface between us and the children. And we want to hear their ideas. We've started up in Paradise because we had some real, obviously, some issues when we were up in, especially in Magalia. We started meeting with our kids in a tea circle, and real tough kids. And once they knew that their ideas were respected, they really came around. And so we're adopting the tea circle all through our programs all over the state. And so I want to sit in this and listen to what the kids have and then come to you with it and have them perhaps present some of their ideas. So what we can do is really refine, if it sounds like we're in pretty much agreement that this is an excellent idea, we can refine with the parameters that we work with. And then I really, as an advocate, like I say, I get back to my original purpose for being here, and that is to involve the voices of the kids.
Thank you.
And their ideas.
Sounds great. Sounds
Thank you.
wonderful.
Mr. Mayor, we'll be returning to the council probably in the next, not the next meeting, but the first meeting in December with some prices of where this would run. I'd like to take the opportunity to publicly thank Mr. Evers, Dan, and Leanna, who is also his counterpart and in this project with these teachers, and also Commissioner Dave Tamori of the Arts Commission. Dave has been working on this diligently too, so you know, if we can get this done, I think signage actually on the top of the hill is a great idea, Councilperson Draper, to direct people to how to get to Table Mountain, because if you're not familiar, how do you get there? I mean, so it may be something just to incorporate the whole area. So we'll be bringing that back.
Great place for flowers.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, moving on to public communication. This is the time in our meeting when we have comments from the public. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
Mr. Mayor, I have 3 speakers. The first speaker is Sherry Bunker.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I just wanted to make sure everybody is aware we have our Veterans Day Parade on Monday. I have not received an application from the city, however, Bill. And we will waive fees for you. And then afterwards from 6 to 8 at the Southside Community Center, we'll be having a dinner. Veterans are free. Everybody else is $10. Children 10 and under is $5. Beef stroganoff, French bread, salad, homemade desserts. So everybody come out. Veterans Matters will be receiving the funds off of that. Thank you. Oh, and that's sponsored by the Exchange Club of Oroville.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is opening prayer.
Father, we thank you for the city council meeting tonight, for your public servants. We pray over the agenda, the appointments. We pray over the proclamations as we proclaim the month for the remembrance of the campfire survivors and those who have suffered. And we pray that we would continue to intercede and make a difference for all those who have lost and suffered, and to give them peace, and for all the homeless and the homeless youth as the weather's changing and getting colder. That you would use our community to make a place to solve these difficult problems that we are facing. Pray for over the whole agenda tonight, as you would put into the committees who you would have there, strategically placed, giving them wisdom from heaven. Your word says, if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all, and it will be given. So we ask for that wisdom this evening. We ask for your continued provision, Lord, for us to answer the call. We thank you for the Veterans Day Parade that's coming up in the Exchange Club, and we ask that you would let that honor those who have gave all and all those who have served, and for all our public servants, Lord, our police, we pray your protection upon them, the fire, the PG&E and the water company. We lift them all up to you. Bless our city council, bless all those who serve. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Last public speaker is the cameraman.
Good evening, Council. I was hoping to speak to one of the individuals I'm about to speak about in person, but they are not here tonight. Tonight, I'm compelled to speak by comments made at last meeting, as well as one after the meeting. I hope everybody had an enjoyable Halloween. Someone thought I was a clown, but when I confronted them about it over the internet, not suggesting this idea at council, they decided to delete their comment. But one person who doesn't delete their comments is Bobby O'Reilly. But unlike Councilwoman Draper, I do not have him blocked. I don't agree with the statement he made on my video, but that's his First Amendment right to do so. And unlike the previous troll, who had no real argument, his is more constructive in nature. He is also a public employee, and I consider what he has to say to be a matter of potential public interest. Now, I could comment what he commented on my page on his channel, but I actually like his karaoke videos. But for him to say, I am not media, then what is he? The First Amendment grants we the people the right to freedom of the press, whether we use Facebook or YouTube to express that right. And I know he's a better gentleman than what he posted because he politely thanked me right there in this chamber for the composite sketch I made of him. The only reason why I did that is because he addressed me by a name at the July meet and greet, which I believe right in front of Councilman Goodson is right after he did it. He addressed me by that name, and that's a name I've never put on a speaker card or given out verbally. But somehow he acquired this information. I don't know how, but I didn't even know it was him until I made some more discovery. But the only reason I did so is because I wasn't given an opportunity to talk to him in person on camera before he left. And finally, I don't have any vendetta against him in any way, shape, or
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that was my last speaker for public comment.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to pull item number 4 and continue it until the next meeting. It'll be back on the next agenda. I just need more time to discuss this with the engineer.
Looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar minus number 4.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar exempt agenda item 4.
I'll second.
Motion carries.
Okay, at this time, we're going to open this up for public hearings. First item on the public hearing agenda is the first reading of ordinance number 1840, adopting the 2019 California Building Standards Code Title 24, Parts 1 through 6 and 8 through 12.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Here tonight, once again, to introduce the first reading of Ordinance 1840, the adoption of the California Building Standards Codes, Title 24, 1 through 6 and 8 through 12. The California Building Standards Code is published in its entirety every 3 years by order of the California Legislature, with supplements published in intervening years. The California Legislature delegated authority to various agencies, boards, commissions, and departments to create building regulations to implement the state statutes. These building regulations or standards have the same force as law and take effect 180 days after their publication unless otherwise stipulated. The California Building Standards Code applies to occupancies in the state of California as annotated. The 2019 edition of the Building Standards Codes after this will be referred to as the code, were published on July 1st, 2019. They will go into effect unamended on January 1st, 2020, unless the city specifically adopts this most current edition by ordinance. The specific adoption allows the city to make more restrictive amendments to the code and allowed with findings, or to adopt specific appendices providing the code for clarification. The specific codes and corresponding amendments attached in Exhibit A are published by reference in Chapter 15 of the City of Oroville Municipal Code. In the city's case, well, we're just carrying forward our municipal codes as is, no repeals or additional amendments, and we'll be coming back in the early of next year with a comprehensive review of Chapter 15. Our city building official left midstream on this adoption, didn't get that portion, wasn't able to get that portion completed, and it takes a few months to go through that well. What we're trying to do is lock in our current municipal code as it sits, but still bring in force these the 2019 codes, which need to be done, and otherwise we lose our past amendments altogether and have to recreate them. Where we do run into any conflicts arise, more restrictive provisions shall take precedence as expressly stated in the code. Okay, so we'll have some conflict based on the 2019 and the previously adopted codes until those are cleaned up in the spring. But the current codes, the more restrictive provisions will apply from there on. There's no fiscal impact to the city. It is our recommendation to introduce by title only the adoption of the first reading of ordinance 1840, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Oroville adopting by reference a 2019 edition of the California Code of Regulations, Title 24, known as the California Building Standards Code, Parts 1 through 6 and 8 through 12, and the Uniform Housing Code, the 1997 edition, the Uniform Code for Abatement of Dangerous Buildings, 1997 edition, and the 2019 edition of the International Property Maintenance Code, amending certain portions of the California Code of Regulations in Title 24. That's the first reading. I'm happy to answer any questions you have at this point in time. That's about it.
Thank you. Councilmember Pittman. Yeah, it's always amazing to me. Every time they come up with a new code every 3 years, I don't know if we ever caught up to the old code. I mean, we never eventually catch up to it. And I remember for a while, we actually kept one code in place, the old 97 code, just because they kept changing things on us. And I understand the legalities of this, but it also is difficult for me to grab onto it. Have we had any contractors complain or express concerns with this version of the code, or has anybody commented to us at all?
Not since I've been here in Oroville, but I get that quite a bit in some of the other jurisdictions I'm in. There's some new things in the energy code this is kind of the final iteration of the energy side of it. So there's going to be mandatory solar on this is new construction. This is not remodels but mandatory solar is now not just solar ready, but actual mandatory solar on new residential. We also tightened up you have to have a EV charger in residential. You're also looking at some commercial construction provisions that get pretty restrictive with regard to occupancy sensors and split loads that are based on occupancy. Typically, we're just working on lights. Now we're working on receptacles as well. So it's gotten very restrictive. This is really the last push by the state on the energy side. We're going to be looking at water for the next 20 years, where we're starting to go on that end. So it's California does a really good job of creating regulation, and so we do this every 3 years, and it tends to get more and more restrictive. We haven't had a large fire and life safety increase restrictions in the code since Loma Prieta, really. Yeah. And we just had the 30-year. But we've done a lot with accessibility, energy, and green building, and that's been driving the code change and the cost of construction, quite frankly, for the last 20-plus years. So that's that. Yes, so you're right. It does change. It does change every 3 years, and it's amended. You see, we do still. There's some good documents, and you have to reference them in the code as well. The 97 Uniform Housing and the Abatement of Dangerous Buildings. They're out of print now, so you have to specifically reference them in the code in order to be able to utilize those documents. There are still very good documents, so we keep those coming along. Perfect. They are out of print, so we can specifically bring them. Any code that has been updated, we are required to update to the current standard, or January 1st, we get it by default, but you also lose the ability to amend it at that point in time. So we wanted to get this going, so we get it in place, and we'll come back, like I said, with a comprehensive review of Chapter 15. I can see there is some conflict in there.
There is one thing that we have as an exception to the code is, in Oroville, we've had backflow preventers on the sanitation lines, especially in the floodplain area. And I just want to make sure we still have the requirement of so many occupancies. The other question I have is, we used to have a building appeals commission. I don't know if we still have that or if it needs to be reappointed, but it might be something where a contractor can come in and appeal a code interpretation. We used to have one. I don't know if it is existing, but I'd like to see if we can reinstitute that.
Currently, the city council is the appeals board, but we can, if you guys are interested in and want to give direction, the council can give direction to us to go back and recreate that. We would, you guys would participate in electing new appeals board, and they're very specific with what their backgrounds are. So you have a good cross-section, some construction, some citizens, and go through. And so when you do get an appeal, you're able to get a good perspective on that.
And I appreciate that, because we generally had people from the field that understood versus us up here that are just elected that may not understand.
No, I think it's a
Yeah.
great idea,
Yeah.
but we would take direction from council
Sure.
on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, but that's why that's why we brought forward all of it as is, so we didn't lose anything.
Right.
And we'll be doing a comprehensive, a review of the.
Thank you,
of the
sir.
chapter.
Appreciate that.
Are there any other comments from the dais? Having none, are there any public comments on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any blue speaker cards for this item.
Having none, looking for a motion to adopt ordinance number 1840 with a reading of the title.
I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 1840, the 2019 California Building Standards Code, Title 24, Parts 1 through 6 and 8 through 12, as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Okay, at this time, we'll close the public hearing portion. Moving on to regular business. Citizens' appointments to the Oroville Parks Commission, Housing Loan Advisory Committee, and Southside Community Center Advisory Committee.
Mr. Mayor, we also have an appointment to the Oroville Parks Commission, as well as the Housing Loan Advisory and the South Oroville Community Center.
Is that on here, the parks?
Yes, sir, it is.
Oh, it is, okay, I'm sorry. Applicants.
The Parks Commission, Mr. Mayor, has one vacancy. It is a term of a 5-year term. The term would began on June 30 of 2019. We've been advertising since then. The term would
Okay.
expire on June 30 of, I believe, 2024.
Okay, as far as the Oroville Parks Commission Committee, I'm going to appoint Kay Castro to that committee. And I'm going to appoint Jason McClure to the Housing Loan Advisory Committee. And I'm going to appoint Tammy Hill to the Southside Community Center Advisory Committee. Are there any comments on this?
Mr. Mayor, could we have a second and a vote?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Moving on to item number 7, authorization to award contract for janitorial service at City Hall.
Mr. Mayor, on September 17, 2019, the City Council authorized the release of a request for proposal for janitorial services for City Hall. This was advertised, 4 bids, a walk was done with interested parties. 4 bids were received by the city on the final date, at the final time. Those bids ranged anywhere from $12.50 a month to $34.10 per month. A total cost of the $12.50 per month is $15,000 per year. The $34.10 per month was $40,920. Staff is recommending awarding of the contract to the janitorial company at $1,250 per month for a total of $15,000 per year. That's janitorial service 2 days a week, cleaning the entire city hall, council chambers, and providing paper products for city hall. Paper products related to paper towels, toiletries, such things, not binder paper and things like that. There is currently $20,000 allotted in the budget for this line item, so the $15,000 is well underneath the $20,000 budgeted amount.
Thank you. We have a comment from Councilmember Goodson.
Yes, I have a question. That the janitorial service that was awarded that contract, is that a local business or outside of Butte County?
This business has a P.O. box in Fresno, California. It's called the Janitorial Company. My understanding is it's similar to like a Service Master where they have franchises all over the place. They have a centralized business office, though.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you.
we do have one public speaker on this item, too.
Okay. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, just a question on review of the quality of service being rendered, because I noticed, reviewing those, the proposals and the amounts. So there was quite a bit of disparity.
Yes,
and two of them were pretty close together on the similar amount, which was quite a bit more. So you always, when you see that, it triggers a little concern. But of course, you award to the best bidder, and that's appropriate. But so what kind of triggers do we have if, quality becomes a concern or other mitigating issues were to ensue with that?
This proposal actually had very strict specifications about what's going to be done, when it's going to be done. I mean, it was laid out how many times you're going to vacuum, how many times per week, things like that, waxing the floors, wiping the chairs off, things like that. It's all laid out in the RFP of when they're going to do that. If they don't meet the criterion laid out in the RFP, they don't live up to that, I have no problem getting out of the contract and moving on to someone else.
Just quality performance. I don't know how you make that judgment or
Well,
that
I think it's
process.
going to be if we come in here and the condition of the room looks the same as before or worse, we're going to know that. If we go in the bathrooms and the toiletries aren't stocked appropriately, I think it'll be apparent. We'll see it.
Councilmember Smith, there were 4 votes, and 2 of them were near each other at the lower end, and then 2 of them were close to each other at the higher end. So, are there any more comments from the dais? Do we have any speakers?
Mr. Mayor, I have one speaker, the cameraman.
Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen of the Oroville Council. I'm going to keep it short on this one. Just to reiterate my previous comments regarding this item, again, this is something we needed. Pretty obvious, cleanliness is a big issue. For example, right here. Oh, that's a piece of carpet. Carpet, but there's by his chair, there's a piece of stuff there. I didn't want to walk all the way to get it, but as you can see, by the behind the city chair in your chair right there. But as you can see, just looking around, there's stuff on the floor, so vacuum is obviously needed. Again, as our city manager said, if they don't live up to the standards, and we come back and I still see trash in the room, I think we can all agree that we can find a new janitorial company. But again, cleanliness needs to be tackled at City Hall before it gets even worse. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that was the only speaker on this item.
Okay, having no more speakers, looking for a motion to accept or award the contract for the janitorial services at City Hall with the janitorial company.
I move that authorizing staff to award that bid and sign of contract for janitorial services at City Hall with the janitorial company.
I'll second.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 8. This is appointment of
we are forming a committee for the city charter changes that are coming up. The council, city council representatives on that committee shall be Councilmember Draper, Vice Mayor Thompson, and myself, Mayor Reynolds. Do we have any comments on that? Do we have any speakers on that?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any speakers on this item.
Looking for a motion to accept the appointments of the council members to the committee for the charter changes.
I'll make a motion to accept the item as agenda size.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Draper.
Oh, I thought I already voted. Sorry.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to reports, discussions, and correspondence. Any council announcements? Councilmember Goodson?
I attended a groundwater sustainability commission meeting with the newly formed JPA that meets monthly. On the agenda, there was a request made for South Feather Water and Power to join the advisory committee with the potential of becoming a future JPA board member. There was considerable pushback via public comment on that item, and so it will be brought back ensuing further discussion. Second item was the appointment of a second chair on that commission, and Councilwoman Goodson was selected to fill that position.
Councilmember Pittman?
Yeah, just to report back a couple of meetings. The SCORE meeting this last week, actually. I just wanted to indicate there is progress being made on the inflow pump station. In fact, we're very near to issuance of contracts in that, or request for a proposal. So just to let you know, progress is being made. Also, at the Supplemental Benefits Fund meeting we had, I just want to report on the progress of reports for the projects of the Nelson Pool, the River Trail, State Theater, the Downtown DBA, the Feather River Center, North Forebay. All are very positive projects. They're moving ahead with a lot of things. And our other two members had to leave because we had a rescheduled meeting. It was very difficult to make too. But we should also indicate that the state water contractors representative made a huge positive comment about the process is moving forward, and we're making positive projects and making that funding source work. And he actually issued congratulations to the SBF and all the participants in that process, because we're moving a lot of projects. A lot of funding has been awarded, and it's really going to be fun to see, like the new Nelson Avenue Family Fun Center. It'll be a lot of fun to see. So projects moving ahead, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith?
Yeah, and this is just an opportunity to remind everyone, we have a lot of state agencies in and around Oroville, and so, or different jurisdictions. For an example, Feather River Parks District, there's multiple parks here that they have responsibility over, and not necessarily the city. So this past week at an ORAC meeting, a member of our community brought up some concerns about trash up Old Ferry Road, which is past the Nature Center, which is a city asset, that small museum there. But if you go just past that, that's no longer city property. It's actually DWR property. But there are multiple picnicking features up there. And so there was concern about trash service and why that wasn't being conducted. So it's because it's not the city's responsibility, but that's being resolved. But just a kind of a reminder that, in our community, we are very fortunate to have so many different entities here. But sometimes a city is not always the place where a situation is resolved. And so it's just a good opportunity to remind us all about that. But so that's going to get fixed, though. We are going to get trash service at those 3 beautiful pavilions that are along that road just above the nature center. And other than that, everyone stole everything else I was to report on. So good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Thompson.
I'm also going to second some of the reports here. I was also at the SPF meeting, and there's a lot of great things that have been done by the SPF over the years. In fact, my wife and I were at Riverbend Park, and it wasn't too long ago that kids' playground there right by the soccer fields was approved, in 2016. And the amount of kids that were playing on that this weekend was, it looked like a bunch of ants on an anthill. It was full. Families were out and enjoying something that was good. And those are things that I like to see. There's a lot of things we can fight about, argue about, but getting behind our youth, our kids, and improving our city for the next generation is something that we should keep at our focus, because even though we're fighting about all these different things, I think we should keep the main thing, and keep the youth and the betterment of the city in our forefront of our mind. And projects like those downtown and recreation opportunity for our community and for our kids should continue to be a priority for this council. And it's great to see what they have done. So I was also really excited to be part of the ORAC. First meeting was on November 1st that I was got the privilege to be a part of. And yes, the rumors are true. They are 3 hours of just meeting. Some of that is just information where you're talking about water levels and just a lot of, data. But there hasn't been I'm excited to be a part of that. I'm glad I'm there, because the Oroville Recreation Advisory Committee's responsibility, and it's put together to bring recommendations for more recreation in our community. And from my records, there has been only about, at least from the studies that I've got, one project recommended in all these years. And so it's been turned into be more of a political, argumentative, informational thing as opposed to what it's supposed to be. So I'm just glad to be part of it and to actually bring some recommendations, because the SBF is an avenue for funds for recreation, but that's not the only avenue. There's hopefully, because of I heard that also at the ORAC meeting, the sirens that were requested by the community that are actually being I believe already installed and getting ready to be tested and whatnot. But the requirements and the requests of this community are being implemented at the spillway. In my opinion, it's time for that the contract be approved. I know at one point this council signed a letter to delay. I'd like to see a letter for this council to approve, finally get our license for the dam, because there's a lot of money that's going to be spent up there. But also with the ORAC, some of that funds can be changed, because I've seen on the ORAC so much funds that have been put into parking lots. In fact, even this last year, there was about, I think, $42 million. From the math that I got, about $42 million are put into different projects up there, but most of that centered around parking lots, which really hits a small demographic. People who have boats, people who use the lake, typically are people who have boats and want fishing. That's great, but there's a lot of other places of recreation. There's biking, there's hiking, there's trails, there's swimming. There's so many things that can be made as an avenue of recreation for our community that are really untapped. And so having a voice on the ORAC that can advise, hey, we've already spent $42 million in parking lots. Why don't we take $3 million of that and put it towards our, tons of other projects that we don't have money for with the SPF. So anyway, I'm glad to be part of it. I can talk about it all day, but I think that there are great things coming our way, and I would love to see a letter from this council to approve the letter to FERC to see the contract signed. So that's all I'm going to report right now.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'm in 100% agreement with that. Sometimes we get caught up in the battle and we lose sight of what we're fighting for, and the kids and family and all of that is what I'm fighting for. So I really appreciate your comments. I, of course, involved in nearly all of this stuff that's been reported out. But yesterday we had a meeting in Oroville with Congressman LaMaffa, Senator Nielsen, Assemblyman Gallagher, and the mayor of San Diego, Kevin Falconer, had come up and we were all sharing ideas with one another about the battle on the homeless issue. And he has implemented some good policies that are really working for his community. And I was really excited to hear that a lot of the things that he has implemented that are working, we're already working on right here in this community. And, the programs that we're putting into place, it takes time to set things up, but once they get going, you will see the results. But right now, it's just been building and setting up and financing, funding, all of these things. Government moves a lot slower than I'm used to, but from what I hear, being new here, it's things are moving forward expeditiously to eradicate a lot of these issues, and I was really happy to hear that some of the policy, Chief Joe Deal, with his program that he's come up with, it was pretty exciting to hear that they're using a lot of that in San Diego. So I was wondering if you've been to San Diego. No, but it was great. It was a really good meeting, very positive, a lot of good comments. It was, we didn't hear a lot about it because we were asked to keep it low key because we didn't want it to turn into we were trying to arrive at some solutions and not have the hype of all the attention. So if anyone was wondering about that, that's what that was about. So, okay, if there's no other comments from the dais, future agenda items? Is there anyone that wishes to put anything on the agenda? Councilmember Pittman?
Two items in particular that I've received calls about. One is, and I think we have this one on the radar, is the traffic on Fifth Avenue. Had a lot of concerns from residents there that it's increased and the speed's increased. I'd just like to have it on a future agenda item for whatever body. And the other item is, I've gotten a lot of calls on Canyon Highlands Drive, and I suspect the chief may have some, but particular along from Ashley down to Quincy Road, as people are coming down the hill, I believe they're keeping their speed up instead of slowing down. So those are concerns that I've raised. I want to bring them to the council, and if staff has some suggestions or ideas, we certainly would love to hear them.
So I could just share with council regarding Fifth Avenue, and then I'll yield to Chief Deal. We are currently painting curbs on Fifth Avenue because we have been having a lot of collisions down there, and as we've moved through the area and looking at that, I think what's changed in the area is a lot of people are parking on Fifth, large vehicles, so individuals that are trying to cross on Bird, High, Robinson, things like that cannot see oncoming traffic on Fifth. So we are going to be painting the curbs 50 feet back from each intersection red to prevent vehicles from parking there, to hopefully try to alleviate some of that. It won't help with the speed, I understand that, but we can look into speed bumps around USA Park and things, or rumble strips, something like that, to look into that. We are working on a speed bump policy right now. When we're done with that, we'll bring that back to the council, and hopefully we can do something like that to try to reduce speed around the areas where children are playing.
Thank you.
Regarding Canyon Highlands, I did receive some complaints from some neighbors up there late last week. All of this week, we've had our radar trailer on Canyon Highlands, and a couple of the days, we've had some officers out there increasing the traffic control, if you will, traffic enforcement. But the main request was for exactly what we did, the radar trailer, which I got put out there Monday. They take it in at night, and at different times, you could probably see it tomorrow morning on Canyon Highlands if you drive down through there.
I would also entertain the idea that we only have one radar trailer.
Currently, we only have one radar trailer.
Might be nice to have a couple more. Just my thinking.
That is one of the recommendations actually in the speed bump policy, because one of the things we have to do is collect data. So we're going to need a new modern radar trailer that will collect that data, so we have the statistical data to support the speed bumps in the neighborhoods.
Thank you.
On that, if I can just add with those trailers, do those record, keep a record of the speeds, or are they just flash?
That's the data collection that'll be going on.
So
Ours currently doesn't do that type of
Do they
thing.
have updated trailers that actually take pictures?
We could, if you wanted to spend the money, you could.
Councilmember Goodson.
I have a comment in regards to, and I'm glad that the mayor mentioned that there was a community forum yesterday for the homeless. So I had a comment and a concern in regards to that. It's my understanding that there were dignitaries, there were elected officials, there was the mayor from San Diego, and we were not, as city council people, invited to that party. And it, not only was it held in our city, but we did not have a chance as city council to give input, to gather that same information, so that, you know, information is power. And when we have an official that comes from out of town that is focused on an issue in our community that's affecting all of us, and we're talking about homeless, and he has a workable, viable plan, and it's not being shared with the city council. And on another note, I had spoken to a member of the law enforcement, and as police officers, they were not informed either. So maybe that's something that, you know, we can address at a future date in the event that we have something like that again. Now, I can understand, you know, an invitation to the community, but we as a council, this is where, for lack of a better way to say it, the buck stops here, and we have to vote on things of that nature in our city.
And I certainly understand your concern. Just so we're really clear, this was not our event. We didn't set it up. We didn't invite anybody. We didn't do anything. This invitations that we received were very specific. They said, don't bring anybody else with you. And that wasn't the wording. But it said, and it also said they're non-transferable without prior approval.
It was just unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it was that way. I think it had a lot to do, honestly, with the venue. It was very small. You know, I'm not sure what all the other reasons were, but, you know, I can tell you, as I did attend, I did listen to it. Everything that you're doing here is what they're suggesting in San Diego. They're just doing it on a much larger scale. So you are doing the same things as that they're doing in larger communities. So I think that if anything else, we walked away from it with kind of a sense of pride that, hey, you know, we appreciate you coming to help us, to tell us these things, but we figured these things out for ourselves as well, and we're moving forward on our same version, identical, sending people home
Was
work
there a
programs.
mention of safe spaces, tent cities, anything like that?
That was talked about. I mean,
Okay.
I would like to comment on that as well. I had received a call from our legislators inviting me to this, and they asked me, they said, we're keeping it very small. I don't want to use the word private, but because it wasn't private, but it was certainly low key, and they asked me who I wanted there. I had to keep it very low key, so I asked Bill LaGrone, Tom Lando, and Chief Deal, and I will let you know that all of the surrounding chiefs of police were there. There wasn't any law enforcement that were a lower rank than chief. There was a lot of mayors and our legislators. So following their instruction for their party is what was done. So if they make a request and they want to host us, I'm going to follow their instructions. Councilmember Draper.
In line with Councilor Pittman's concerns about the traffic, and I had emailed you a few weeks ago about my concerns about the traffic on Hammond Avenue. And we have had problems for years. We've lived there 23 years, and it's not every day, but it's frequent enough that I have concerns about children that live in that neighborhood. And they speed down Yard Street, they speed up Hammond, they blow right through the stop sign. And sometimes it's late at night when this is happening, sometimes in the evening, sometimes after school. The other issue is by Jerry's Market, and I'm sure that you and Chief Deal are aware of this, but you'll have like 12 to 15 cars backed up on Mitchell at that stop sign. And then you have people trying to get out onto it on the other side of Mitchell. And then you got the high school people coming that way and coming down from Oro Quincy. And that is a really dangerous spot. And it's getting worse. And the worst times are 8 in the morning, noon, 3 p.m., and 5 o'clock, 5 to like 6 o'clock. And it's gotten to the point where I know a lot of people in our neighborhood, they don't go that way because you can't get out. And so a lot of them take the roundabout, and that's also a hassle because with the high school getting out, they're going right down the hill through the roundabout. And so, you know, either way that you have to get out of our neighborhood, you're going to get a lot of traffic. But I really think the speed bumps would be something that would help with safety on Hammond Avenue and Yard Street, at least where they're coming up to the stop sign, so that they would have to stop. But anyway, that's my concern with our area.
And I agree. I mean, around the high school area, there should be some traffic calming measures. And, you know, one of the things that we need to look at by Jerry's Market is maybe consider a four-way stop in there to just calm the traffic through there, maybe meter it through.
It really does need something.
Right,
Yeah.
because that is a bad intersection, and
Yeah,
the sun hits you in the eyes in the morning, and there's been a lot of collisions I'm aware of in that area.
I agree with all of that as well. And Mitchell Avenue is very dangerous, very narrow between, what is that, Washington and Bridge?
Yes.
Very, very dangerous, very narrow. It's, depending on what type of vehicle you have, a lot of times there's not really room for two vehicles because everyone parks there as well. So I say we look at the whole neighborhood as speed bump consideration.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if there are no more future agenda items, we're moving on to administration reports. Ruth?
I attended the CalPERS conference last week. It was Monday through Wednesday. Didn't really get too much new. I got a couple things out of there, but basically their message is they're shooting for 25 to 30 years to be 100% funded again. They're currently 71% funded. They wanted us to think of it as here we are, in 25 to 30 years, we're going to be 100% funded, but it is not going to be a straight line. We're going to go this way and that way with the investment returns. They don't want us to focus too much on them missing their investment in certain years because they think in the long term they're going to average out and be 100% funded. So that was pretty much their message. Also, our department is working really hard. Our auditors are coming on the 12th. So we got a list of 93 items that we're working on to get ready for that. So pretty much as soon as we finish year end, we're going to be right into budget year. So we're pretty busy.
I hope they're not claiming that they had bad investments in this market. Blind squirrel could get a nut in this market.
They said they're going to focus on private equity investments, that they're really not very competitive on Wall Street type investments because they're state regulated. So they're really focusing on private equity. In the past, they have performed very well, so they're focusing on that. So also, Pepra is going to be kicking in around 25 years. So I think long-term, they have a plan. Hopefully, they succeed.
I have a couple of council members who would like to comment on your report. Councilmember Pittman?
At your conference, Ruth, did you hear any discussion about getting the state of California out of regulating PERS?
No, it almost
Because
sounded.
that is the problem.
Yeah.
The regulation from PERS, regulating the investment portfolio has caused huge damage to PERS
Yeah. In
and
fact,
STIRS.
they made the point to say we are state regulated.
That needs to be changed because it's just going to go downhill from day one. So, thank you, appreciate that.
Councilmember Goodson?
Ruth, could you give us an update on our current unfunded liabilities?
It's 25 million at our last estimate.
Thank you.
Bill?
The city is currently working on a grant application. Governor Newsom made $75 million available to cities, municipalities who have been suffering from the PSPSs that have been occurring. $37,500,000 is in cities such as our size. We are applying for approximately $500,000 to provide generators for City Hall, our corporation yard, our airport, and a new transfer switch for our police and fire facility so that we have the ability to, regardless of what PG&E does, conduct the people's business and continue the continuity of government. We're also working on some other grant applications for some affordable housing projects. We currently have two that we're working on. We were, the other day, I ran into Mr. Mayor, Ed Mayor, of the Housing Authority, and he let me know that Oroville right now is the hottest market for affordable housing projects, and that we have the most going on over here in all of the counties. So that's something the council should be proud of, is that we are actively pursuing those. And you are, I know it takes a long time, and sometimes it seems like a struggle, but you are making a difference in that area.
Thank you. Leo?
We continue to get quite a few applications in. From a standpoint of new, larger developments, we've actually been working with the Crown Communities at Vista Del Oro. They're ready to put their marketing trailer out on site. We just approved that, so they'll be moving forward and start marketing those projects out there. Presently, we've also approved all their master plans, so they're ready to get going as soon as they can. They're just taking care of their logistics on their end. Additionally, we've met with a couple prospective developers for out in the Wilbur area, in the After Bay, and so they want to move forward, and we're trying to see how we're going to We met with LAFCO on how we can move forward on some of those items that the hurdles we may run into there. But that was a pretty positive meeting we had with Steve Lucas from LAFCO. Additionally, the stuff we have going just commercially and our daily turnover of permits is very good. We're surprised on actually how much we did. We're doing our new ISO paperwork for our insurance rating and going through the traffic that we've had through, and it's very encouraging. So from the course of the last 12 months. So anyway, that's what I report right now.
Quick question on that. Is one of the projects the old project out?
That changed hands, and we've reached out to the old owners to connect us with the new ones. We've reached out to them. Haven't had much luck getting response back. We are working on actively trying to get them because they're actually in our current sphere as well.
Right.
So we do want to get together with them, but we haven't gotten any response. We've reached out to them a couple times and just haven't gotten a response.
Memory serves me well. I believe there is a development agreement that we have with that particular project, if it's still valid.
It's one that is, I don't believe it's still valid, but we are taking a lot of those items that we had previously entitled and streamlining, getting those back into effect, especially if they make sense. With development agreements, if they've expired, we will look at them and make sure they still make sense.
Yeah.
But if they do, we definitely are utilizing all our tools that we can to streamline them, getting them back in and back in force. I mean, with no sense in making them go through the full process again if we can help get them up and running. I mean,
Thank you.
That's the goal.
Thank you. Chief?
Yeah, I just want to let the council know that about a month ago or so, I was made aware of a funding opportunity through North Valley Community Foundation. And we did some work and filled out an application, and today, just literally a few hours ago, they let us know that it was approved. It's a $20,000 grant for the police department. It was specifically written to enhance the current canine program within the department.
Cool.
So I've been working with Ruth throughout the day to properly document and receive those funds. So just wanted to not only give a shout out to North County Community Foundation. It comes from, the money comes from the Butte Strong Fund, which if you're not familiar with it, you can research it, exactly that, Butte Strong Fund. It'll tell you all the different people in different organizations that donate money to that. It's all donation driven. And not only just thank them for it, but let the council know that it's something we'd worked on and achieved. That's it.
Thank you. I was a big donor of the first K-9 unit, and it was pretty exciting, big part of that. Appreciate you continuing that. Mr. Cole.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, well, then that brings us to the end of our meeting. City council meeting is adjourned till November 19th, 2019 at 5:30 PM.